Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and I'm coming at you with some hot takes in SWGOH. It's been a little bit since I've done one of these videos, but I kind of had some ideas floating around in my head, and I was like, you know what, I should make a hot take video, just see, get these out there for the community, just some things that, sometimes I have these thoughts and I'm like, do I really share these? And I'm going to just put them out here, so you guys let me know if you hate this, you love it, you want more of it, let me know. I really love you guys, I appreciate all your support. It was a great live stream. Sorry we couldn't bring home the Grand Arena win, but hey, can't win them all, especially when you play as horridly as I did. So let's get in here, guys. I want to talk about this. Let's get into some hot takes. So the Lightspeed bundles were kind of bad for SWGOH. I need to backtrack on some of my words. I thought that they were one of the best packs released. They really boosted revenue. They seem to be very popular. The player base loved them. But the more rosters I've seen post Lightspeed bundles, the more that I'm seeing the dark side of these bundles, the parts of the game where players are still really struggling, that they don't really have that solid direction because they're still stuck trying to recover from the fallout that was these bundles. And so I'm going to kind of get into some of these impacts, right? So first of all, yes, they were pushed forward years. Your account was pushed forward years if you got all of these bundles, which a lot of players did. And that's not just because you're like, oh, well, it doesn't really take that long to get Rey and Kylo. But think, Rey, Kylo, the ships, Starkiller, all of these things that take a lot of time, boom, in the course of, a few months, dropped into your account overnight. So it did push you forward a lot, right? But with that kind of exacerbated two major issues that we've talked about a lot. Zetas and mods are two things that are just as much a time wall as a paywall, in that you can sort of paywall your way through it, but really they're locked behind time that you just need time to accumulate them, time to find them, time to acquire them. And a lot of us, like myself, because I bought these, I've still not really recovered from the Zetas and or the mods. And with mods, it's kind of a three-part issue. So with mods, you kind of start out and say, do you even have enough mods for your for these players, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people do not have enough mods to cover these characters. And then it was, oh, well, I've got mods, but they're trash, which that's where I would say I'm at. And then even when you do get mods that, okay, they're good enough for this character, you don't have enough slicing materials to even work on them. And so this was kind of these issues that I think were bubbling beneath the surface a little bit, that were kind of getting closer and closer to that forefront in Galaxy of Heroes. And I think this is because, again, a lot of the newer characters are requiring more and more Zetas, right? Every character needs at least one Zeta, if not two. But I think the mods we need for our teams are getting crazier and crazier. Everybody needs really good mods to compete. And that's not just even oh, yeah, you need that because you're in Kyber 1. Below this, to get through Rise of the Empire and all these different game modes, you need really, really good mods, and you're asking players at lower and lower galactic powers to have better and better mods. And that's kind of where I'm like, yeah, you can ask us for that stuff, but you got to kind of alleviate that. And I think the Lightspeed bundles are bringing out that this was an issue that was kind of lingering below the surface a little bit. Next is the GP inflation that comes along with these Lightspeed bundles. A lot of you now, your galactic power shot forward, some of you millions of GP. And so what's happened is that, inflation is that concept in economics that a dollar, today is not worth as much as it used to be 10 years ago, 20 years, 30, 40, right? You think $10,000 back, in 1940 was an absurd amount of money. And nowadays, 10 grand is nice, but my family can't live off of 10 grand a year, right? Back then you absolutely could, nowadays, that's, all right, cool. I need a lot more than that. So that's kind of inflation and that has kind of translated into Galaxy of Heroes, that this 4 million GP number to get into hard mode conquest and proving grounds used to be very significant. That used to really say, hey, I'm a kind of a serious player in SWGOH if I've got 4 million galactic power. And now that's just kind of you need to get here before the game really starts. It's lost a lot of its meaning. And if you got there through hard work and dedication as a free-to-play, your account is going to look far different than someone who got there because of the Lightspeed bundles. Because while they might have more progress towards 2 Galactic Legends, they don't have one, where you might have one at 4 million. You might have, some fully formed teams with Zetas and Omicrons and good mods that they quite don't have. Because what the Lightspeed bundles did is if you think of, like a timeline, right? If you think of like a timeline of your account, it moved the gear timeline way out this direction, right? Moved you way out this way, but it kept your mods and your Zetas still right here. So now your gear is over here and your mods and Zetas are over here. And so there's this disconnect. That's kind of what GP inflation did. It inflated your GP, but it didn't inflate any of the rest of the stuff with your account along with it. And then like that kind of splits the player base, because in the past, when Capital Games has looked at what gear economy changes they could make, when they took carbonite circuit boards and bronzium wiring out of the relic upgrades for Relic 7 to Relic 8 and Relic 8 to Relic 9, right? That was big news for the game. And, at the time you're like, oh, that doesn't really impact me because I'm not doing those relics. Well, as somebody who's doing those relics now, like, great success. But that, with these Lightspeed bundles, it's kind of going to split the player base further, because how can you're going to have to release an update. If you release an update, how does that impact people who are at the top end? The people below them, and below them, you're going to have to release multiple things to get the same impact, because the player base is so split on what they need. So, yes, I think the Lightspeed bundles were successful in allowing players to have access to these things a lot sooner, but it exacerbated some issues that I kind of think are bad for SWGOH, that people are kind of complaining about, and that I'm seeing 6 months down the line from their release are still causing a lot of problems. So, again, it's a hot take, because they were probably the most popular pack that's ever been released, but I think if we broke it down to its core, you guys would see that Capital Games has kind of been silent on this stuff. They talked about, they were a smashing success and we're going to bring them back, but they've never really said that, it created a Zeta and a mod issue, and that it inflated GP and it's going to, they've kind of remained silent. And I think their silence speaks volumes. That sometimes silence on an issue speaks a lot louder than if you address it. And so, it's a hot take, I get it, but, it's there. So let me know what you guys think about that. Do you kind of see where I'm coming from there? If you purchase them, like myself, do you kind of see those things or not so much? All right. General Veers is losing usefulness. So I think a lot of people kind of recognize this, and he's losing usefulness sooner because more players are getting Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. More players are getting those item Versio teams. And so General Veers has lost a lot of his usefulness because more and more teams are countering Imperial Troopers in that anti-turn meter synergy. There's a lot more debuffs in this game, like Doubt. People inflicting daze or punishing you for gaining turn meter. And the other side of this is that your Dark Trooper Moff Gideon and Iden Versio teams kind of stealing away some of those Imperial Troopers, and arguably, Dark Trooper Moff Gideon definitely a far superior team to General Veers Troopers, even without his Datacron. But Iden, with her Omicron, you could say is a far superior defensive team to Veers. It doesn't quite have the same punch-up capabilities of General Veers, but there are teams on offense that Iden will beat that General Veers cannot beat. So, I think he's really losing some usefulness, and I think that, as I look at this game, and I'm kind of I'm not saying you don't build these guys, but I feel like people love to talk about how great Imperial Troopers are, and every time I'm kind of continuing to cringe. And what I really think needs to happen is we need another Imperial Trooper. I've said this for months. We need another Imperial Trooper, but I honestly think it's that we need a new leader. Because General Veers is Zeta, we all forget, but it's on his unique ability. It's not on his leadership. His leadership's the Omega, right? This is an Omega. This is the leadership. I think we need an Imperial Trooper lead to take over the General Veers team, because we're one Imperial Trooper short of what I would say is being able to fully utilize this faction. Because Dark Trooper Moff Gideon is an Imperial Remnant, and his kit calls out that he doesn't really want Dark Trooper. So here you're using Scout, Moff Gideon, Death Trooper, and Stormtrooper, which leaves you with, 4 less Imperial Troopers here, right? Because you don't use those guys. Well, now you take 1, 2, 3, and 4 out. You started with 13, now you're down to 9. You don't have enough for 2 full teams. So I think to get a little bit more out of this, and you got to think as well, you can't use Veers and Piet with Iden. She doesn't like them, and she doesn't really want to go with them either. So you can't really make these teams, and so I think we need one more trooper to kind of round out this entire faction, give us some more viability, and allow people to really use this to their core to make Veers useful again. So yeah, maybe that's 2024 Fat Phil Wampa, make Veers useful again. But yeah, it's a hot take. I get it. Like, people love Imperial Troopers. Maybe it's not so much that he's losing usefulness, but that Imperial Troopers aren't as good as we like to give them credit for. Because, like, the Iden and, you know, Dark Trooper Moff Gideon are really showing their class right now. Now, I get there's some Datacron stuff going on here, but, you know, hey, everybody gets their time in the sun. All right, and then the last one. Oof. The Bane Nerf. Now, I'm showing you this part of it because you got to understand it this way. If they nerf Bane, then Sith Eternal needs a buff. Because Sith Eternal isn't even a Galactic Legend, right? He's not a Galactic Legend. He's terrible. So Bane getting nerfed inherently makes Sith Eternal that much less valuable, because right now, I treat Bane like a Galactic Legend, and I treat Sith Eternal like he has been, which is not a Galactic Legend. If you nerf Bane and they think that nerf would probably happen both in Grand Arena and outside of it, just, you know, thinking out loud. But I think that the issue is, if you nerf Bane, now Sith Eternal gets worse, right? That they have to be careful here. And that's why I think they came out and said, we're kind of happy with the way Bane is, because people aren't using him with Sith Eternal because Bane is so good. And so it's not making Sith Eternal into this instant win on offense. It's just kind of making Bane into this, you know, instant win unless you're against Jedi Master Kenobi, but maybe with the Datacron that changes things. You know, because the one problem that I have with the Bane kit, right, and I think this was something that they fixed because they probably realized how broken it was, but his Omicron here saying these effects persist if Bane is defeated, we all thought it applied to this stuff up here, which made Sith Eternal, right, or whoever, immune to ability block, cooldown increase, healing immunity, and the big one here being the healing immunity, right? Giving Sith Eternal that to be able to beat Jedi Master Kenobi and GAC was big. Bane getting deleted kind of really hurt that. Now, again, he's got bonus turn stuff there, but the whole concept that I'm getting at here, I think there's a lot of talk about, is Bane going to get nerfed? They kind of said, we're kind of happy, but, you know, they've said that before, and then they've come in and, like, bang, he's getting nerfed. So, my hot take, if you nerf Bane, you've got to buff Sith Eternal. Because you can't, right now I feel is, like, one of the most beautiful times in Star Wars, where you have this character like Darth Bane, who's finally what Sith Eternal used to be on offense. Like, Sith Eternal could be everything on offense back in the day. And that's kind of what Bane is right now, where he's beating so much on offense that Sith Eternal was struggling to beat. And so you either need to switch that to say, hey, we're going to make Sith Eternal kind of Bane's equivalent, and we're going to turn Bane into what Sith Eternal is right now. I'd be okay with that. Like, I'd be okay with switching that role. I'd much rather the Galactic Legend be on the level that Bane is. But, you know, just nerfing Bane, I think, would cause more problems for them. And I think it would also show that they're not testing and they're incapable of creating balanced characters anymore. And it would, in my mind, would also say that, you know, it seems like some characters, they're releasing them with the intention that they need a Datacron. Where Bane, it's like, you don't really need this Datacron. So, I don't know. I don't know if this is necessarily a hot take or just, like, complaining. I don't know. But I feel like it is a hot take to say, like, I want Bane to get nerfed only if that nerf results in a Sith Eternal buff, right? And maybe that's kind of the thing to expect that as a hot take. But I think these things are kind of important topics to bring up sometimes. Like, one, just hot takes are kind of interesting for you guys to hear. But I think we kind of need to give CG a little bit of stuff and say, look, we understand that Bane's probably overperforming, but you gotta, I think they recognize that Sith Eternal has been underperforming since Kenobi's been buffed to stop him completely. So, that's the end of the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts. I love you all. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.